Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source Podcast. I'm your host, Jace. We're here today to talk about a new graphic novel that just came out last month. It's a character you're probably familiar with, but in a way that this character's never been presented before. So it came out from Papercuts, the Mad Cave, sort of young adult imprint line. And I have the creative team, Marguerite Bennett, the writer, and Bev Johnson, the artist, joining me today. So, ladies, thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to start off. So obviously, Flash Gordon has been around for, almost 100 years now. I think 1934 was when Flash first appeared. So we're getting a new take, a younger take. It's a female Flash. But let's start off. I'll throw it over to you, Marguerite. Your first memory of Flash Gordon. Like, when did you become aware of Flash as a character?
So this is less heartwarming than I'm thinking you're expecting. I was honestly introduced to it like through jokes on Family Guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it wasn't until I pursued it, when I wasn't a kid anymore, that I realized how much it had contributed, to the sci-fi and fantasy and, modern folklore scene, with other media, down to the Emperor and Star Wars, came because Lucas really wanted to do a Flash Gordon adaptation and, couldn't get the rights, and so he made his own.
Well, that's really interesting actually to come to it that way, because it goes back to what I was saying about this character being sort of embedded in pop culture, like our entire lifetimes, which is
Yes.
interesting, which is so cool to have a different take. What about you, Bev? What's your earliest memory of Flash Gordon as a character?
I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I studied up for this project specifically. I mean, I knew about it before, but I wasn't super familiar until I took on this project, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do my research.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. But again, I had heard the name, but maybe just weren't necessarily aware. So that's interesting. But let's talk about kind of the elevator pitch. I mean, a lot of people, I think, are like you, Bev, where they know the name, they know, science fiction from the olden days. So it's going to be, a little corny maybe at times. But who is Flash and what is the character? And specifically this story and this version of Flash. How would you pitch it to somebody who's completely unfamiliar, Marguerite? What's your elevator pitch for the series?
Oh goodness. I mean, I just really wanted the kind of book that I wish I'd had when I was about like 11 or 12. And so I wanted an adventure that had all the boring parts cut out.
Well, yeah, mission accomplished, because it is very tightly paced. And you mentioned coming on the project, Bev. So, I mean, you say you did your research. I mean, we're talking decades and decades, all the way going back to the earliest stuff, Alex Raymond, which is, really intricate, black and white. This is obviously, a different style. But I think a lot of people maybe know Flash Gordon from the Sam Jones movie in the early 80s. That has its own aesthetic as well. So when you're doing that research, Bev, and kind of diving into this world visually, what were your first thoughts, and how did you start forming ideas of how you wanted this world and these characters to look?
Well, I knew it was going to be such a different take, but I did want to keep intact the heroism and the fun and the fantastic elements of it. And like Marguerite said, I went into it the same ethos of just making it as fun and engaging as possible, especially thinking about myself as like around that age group, like middle grade, 12-ish, the kind of story that I would enjoy reading.
And for you, Marguerite, when it came to character design, did you have, again, because these are different versions of the characters, did you have ideas in your head of what you thought they might look like? Was there back and forth with character and world building design, or did you just turn Bev loose?
I sent Bev a tsunami of reference images and then was like, please choose which one speaks to you.
So knew enough to get out of the way and let Bev do what she does.
Yes, absolutely. And that was the right decision.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit again, because these are different versions of the characters. Let's talk about kind of almost the narrative design of the characters, the voices, because this, again, is a different version of Flash, a young girl who's sort of discovered by Dale Arden, who's kind of a little bit older young guy who has the huge responsibility on his shoulders. So it's a Flash as she starts out. She's not even sure who she is. So again, I think that speaks to the age group that you're talking about as well. This may be almost a coming of age type story. So how was it finding the voices of these characters for you?
I mean, it was a lot of fun, honestly. And the thing that I really wanted to start with was, yes, who are you without your memories? Who are you without, the backstory and the experiences to define you? And so I knew that, the first number one characteristic for Flash was like that courage, that boldness and impetuousness and even recklessness. But like a fierce conviction about like what she was learning was right or wrong. And for Dale, it was the concern and the care and the being more logical and like the seeing the bigger picture. And something that was very important to me was, in the literature given, to specifically, boys and girls as different groups, the boys are sort of given heroes that solve things through, punching and fighting, and the girls are given things that are taught to solve, through just, okay, we'll just become friends with everyone. And so I wanted something, that wasn't so basic and so binary. And I wanted, a girl character who was impulsive and adventurous, and a boy character who was compassionate and thoughtful. And I definitely wanted it to be, that this wasn't okay, we're just going to solve the crisis in front of us, but to learn to use those talents, that courage and that compassion, to find what was the problem causing the problem that they were actually dealing with, and to begin to mature and grow, as adventurers and as heroes, into a more adult understanding of how to save the world.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic job, and we'll talk about that in a second. Again, because going back to the golden age stuff, where stories were less nuanced and things were a little bit more black and white, and you kind of subtly touch on that as well, which I want to talk about. But I want to throw it over to you first, Bev. It's Flash Gordon. We know we're going to get aliens and fantastical, futuristic weapons and spaceships and what have you, crazy alien creatures. Was there anything that you were maybe, oh, I don't know how I'm going to handle that, or any challenges that you thought you might face just because this is such a broad world and you're sort of starting this version of Flash Gordon from scratch? Anything that you were like, oh man, I don't know how well I'm going to handle that, and then how did you meet that challenge?
The creatures were a challenge, but I think they were a fun challenge. And they all have their own personality, just like the characters. So I think the script has such a strong sense of voice for all the characters, but even the creatures and all the descriptions of the settings even were so strong that I think Marguerite did a great job.
Yeah, and the story does build organically. So did you work like from start to finish? Did you start with like, page one, panel one, and go straight through? Because I know some artists like to jump around and switch things up. How was the process for you?
I was working pretty linearly for the most part.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I mentioned kind of that idea of black and white, right? Like the hero and villain and that clear delineation. And we certainly have that if you go back to the Golden Age stuff. Ming is really this mustache twirling villain. You give us some villains here, Marguerite, which are, much more nuanced. And maybe there's something going on where they're not necessarily in control of their own actions, and it sort of engenders some empathy. So talk a little bit about that, wanting it not to be that hey, this guy's just bad because he was born that way, or whatever. This is a little more sophisticated, I would say.
Well, I think, with the, younger generation, like, with my nieces and nephews, I've been delighted to see, frankly, that, they're a more sophisticated audience than maybe I was when I was the same age. Um, and so I very much, wanted something that, raised those questions. And, when coming into like a property like this, or sorry, that's so vulgar to say property, to come into a story like this, it's almost 100 years old. I definitely wanted, to be sensitive to the legacy. Like I'm essentially being invited as a guest into someone else's house. And so how do I alter, these major canonical beats in order to be, appealing and exigent to young readers, but also not show any disrespect, for the work that literally thousands of other writers and artists and creators have done. Like, I'm quite standing on the shoulders of giants here. And so like with the Emperor, that was, I mean, I suppose like the biggest case study, where there was quite a lot of racist history, surrounding the invention, of the original Emperor. And so I wanted to take it into a place where, their biases or their expectations were greatly in play, and then for them to be, pulled up short, like immediately upon meeting him, where it's like, oh, this is not, I thought we were going to get, okay, we have to pause
Right.
here and actually get the facts before we make any decisions.
Yeah, again, I think it works so well and it just engenders some empathy and it also pulls you into the story because you want to know, well, what's this guy's deal? Because I mean, when you see, again, speaking about the Sam Jones movie from the 80s, when you see that version of Ming, played brilliantly by Max von Sydow, he's the bad guy, from the goatee to the eyebrows to just the way he looks, you just know. You kind of flipped that on its head. So I really appreciated that. And specifically for you, Bev, when it came to that character design, a much younger emperor, body language and everything, I think brings in a little bit of mystery and intrigue. Were you conscious of that in terms of the character design and the body language for that character as you're wanting to get across that nuance that we're talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I think he is a character that is very complex and sympathetic at times. So I wanted him to read as more sad and tortured as opposed to just mustache twirling evil.
Yeah, and the other part of it is he does have some powers that maybe we haven't necessarily seen very many versions of Ming have. And we're talking about magic and we're talking about technology, which is an interesting mix. So visually, did you know right away how you were going to kind of show that powers, that quote unquote infection that he might have?
Well, some of that was in the script, but then some of it I had more creative liberty around. But I did want it to, yeah, seem like an infection or a parasite to him.
Yeah, and again, that adds to this idea of mystery. And although this is a sort of a complete story, or I should say, it's a big chunk of story. You feel like once you've read it, it's well over 100 pages, that you're really become immersed in this world and this version of Flash. But there's still a lot of questions to be answered. So, hopefully, and I know it's always down to sales. You want to talk about kind of mercenary here. But plans for more, Marguerite? I mean, you know where this story is going and what have you?
What I can tell you is that this is only a chunk of what I turned into them years ago.
Okay.
So beyond that, I can't say anything.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. I don't want to get you in trouble, but I mean, it is so fun and it is so energetic. Beautiful artwork, nice clean lines. I think will really appeal to the younger readers and older readers as well. The color work is fantastic. So again, if you like Flash Gordon, everybody, definitely check it out. There's a link in the show notes where you can go to the website and order it. You can get it from Amazon. You can ask your comic retailer to order it. You probably order it at Barnes & Noble as well. So it came out on May 20th. So I know it hasn't been a long time, but I'm curious if you've heard any feedback or had a chance to talk to anybody who's read it. Margaret, have you heard anything?
My family was kind enough to send me some like very kind reviews. So that's how I find, because I'm not on social media,
Right.
so, I live under a rock. And it's great under my rock. But yeah, everything that I had seen was very kind, so I guess if you hate it, shout at me on the street. So
What about you, Bev? Have you received any feedback?
Oh yeah, my friend said that her little sister is reading it and loves it, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, and again, everybody, I can't stress how kind of new reader friendly this is. Maybe you're like a lot of people, and yeah, I know the name Flash Gordon, but I don't really know. Oh, wait, this is a female Flash. This starts off and it gives you everything you need to know. There's plenty of mystery, plenty of intrigue, like I said, that pulls you in. But again, relatable characters. And that I think is the thing that is kind of most impressive about this. And I think you did a fantastic job, Marguerite, because it starts off with just Flash and Dale, but then the cast sort of grows pretty quickly. And that's what I really enjoyed maybe the most about it was the fact that everybody's relationship is different, right? Like when you talk about the Emperor's relationship with the sister, Flash's relationship with the Emperor, Flash's relationship with the sister, Dale's relationship with each of them, like they're all different. And I think, especially for younger kids, that you can kind of relate. I mean, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and she has a lot of friends, but no two friendships are exactly the same. So, was that organically done for you, Marguerite? Just kind of how you built the characters, or was it something you were conscious of?
No, that really just came out of, conflict reveals character and, no two people are the same. And so it was just a lot of fun, especially like with the rich backgrounds and history and design that we were able to, imbue each character with. So it's built into quite a lovely team, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%, and it really sets up, much more story to come. So again, everybody, link in the show notes to check it out. Highly recommend it. And the last thing I'll say here is that, if you have a child around that age, 10, 11, 12, and you're trying to get them to read, this will make a great bedtime story. You can read it together with them, and you can talk a little bit about some of these ideas. It's not super complex where we're getting into, Sophie's Choice moral dilemmas, but there is stuff there that can start, interesting conversations and help younger ones kind of grow as people. So fantastic job, both of you. I really loved it. Thanks for sharing it with me. And as we're winding down here, I'll throw it to each of you. We'll start with you, Marguerite. Anything else you want to share with our audience about Flash Gordon, the girl from Infinity?
What a fangirl of Bev's I've become.
Huh?
No, just what a fangirl of yours I've become. And just, just how much I adore the art and just like the energy and tenderness and sincerity and earnestness, that was so important to me. Just glows out of the page because of Bev's art. So,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You described it perfectly. The tenderness, the sincerity, like it's just such a fantastic job. And what about you, Bev? Anything else you want to share with our audience?
Well, it came naturally with the script, I think. I mean, you say that you gave me a bunch of references, but I think they were all very helpful. And I think
okay.
each character has their own unique voice that made it so easy for me to like act with the characters.
That's
Well,
awesome.
fantastic. Again, best of luck. Hope it does gangbusters. I really want a volume two and subsequent volumes. I really want to dive in and learn more about this version of Flash because she is still such a mystery after the end of this first volume. So again, thanks for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And to everybody out there in the audience, whether you're listening to us on the audio only feed or checking us out on YouTube, we really appreciate it. Again, go check out Flash Gordon, the girl from Infinity. It's definitely worth the read. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. We appreciate you joining as always, and we'll talk to you next time.